it's all the different aspects that we need to tackle.
Okay, 1 minute. Let me paste that into the Slack channel. There we go. So that's based on your doc that you produced, Roy, for the implementation plan, which is, for the sake of everyone else, is up further up that new core theme design channel thread. Yep.
Tot even. Dan gaan we in.
Okay.
Yeah. So this is a good warming up exercise because we're going to have to. All right. Yeah. We're going to have this discussion at least once more at DrupalCon, right? We will have opportunity to meet with core committers to, well, go over the status of the plan at that point in time. When I outlined what I saw like 5 big parts to this. The experimental profile, just having the container where all this stuff is in. The question about sample content. The sample content, how to import it. The implementation of the design, so the umami theme, let's say. And then 2 smaller bits where the installer screen redesign. And I was also thinking about what do we need for documentation outside, well, maybe inside, but also outside the profile. So do we need something on Drupal.org about all of this, etc. Okay, Web6 says let's have a good look at what we think we can achieve in 8.5 and also identify which parts would be able to move to 8.6. I don't know. Let's. On one hand, we can start with the visual design, right? We have a visual design, and we want to. There's some tasks still like accessibility review and tweaks, I guess, to the actual visual styling. On the other hand, that should not stop us from looking at, okay, what kind of theme are we making? So we, well, there's many points to consider. Experimental profile, experimental theme, and well, a scope for 8.5 versus 8.6. I guess we're all hoping to do everything within 8.5. We should be have a backup plan and see if we can look at what could be moved to 8.6. So, because I was thinking an experimental theme without the sample content does not make that much sense, I guess. So in that respect, actually getting a handle and a plan for the sample content could be even a more pressing issue. What do people think? Do we want to talk theme? Do we want to talk content?
Is it a task of our team to worry how the content gets in, or is that the content team?
I think it's our task to figure out that, but there is quite a few bits that has been built because of the other team has built many things with the same requirements that we have. So we should be able to take a look at what they've done and most likely use some bits of that for our purposes. But they are not, as far as I know, they are not interested in building it like for us.
Yeah. So, and from my perspective, I was hoping to be able to get to DrupalCon and come along with certainly the articles finished, as many as possible, and I think we've already got enough to do the actual visual page. The landing page. We've already got enough to cover those. I was also going to do a sweep through and select some of the recipes from that website that the other team mentioned they are using. So it'd be good to see if we want to tally with them. Maybe I could look at that, get a conversation going, see what spread of recipes they're using. And also to see if I can tally that with images, because if we're using images from existing stock libraries where the license is acceptable, the CC0 license, is it C00 or CC0? Sorry, I forget now. But then it makes sense to choose recipes, obviously, where there is already an image that would suit the recipe that's being paired with it. That's going to save some time if we're looking for speedy results. Otherwise, I've got to get cooking and taking some photos, which could be interesting. So certainly, as much as I can do before DrupalCon on the content front is fine. I think much of it is already done from the article's perspective, anyway.
About recipes, are we going to use like the content of people, the recipes from the wiki something? I think it was the name.
That's right. Yeah.
Okay.
See if I can dig out the link whilst we're chatting. Wikipedia.
So from that point of view, then we need to have a migration or some sort of a get the content in script or plan. And I'm guessing
Exactly.
we also are then required to do the actual site building as well. And then lastly, we'd say the theming of the website.
Correct. We need to build a install profile. There's all the issues are open for it, right? There's an issue to discuss how to import content. There's an issue about figuring out
I've seen
how.
it was just I wasn't sure what team was responsible for each of them. I actually kind of thought we were responsible for the theming section of the new team, as opposed to the site building and developed installation profile section of it. So I'm happy to do those.
I'm not aware of other teams, so I'm considering this the out of the box team. So we have.
I'm sure we can
that does mean. This does mean, of course, that we need to reach out to other experts, right? Because we need developers to help us.
Yep.
So if you look at that, right? if you look at that link I sent, it has a very big part of what we need built there, and we can just copy it from there. Like, if I look at the, like their license definitely allows us to do it. It includes like one, I guess, generic module which we can use, and then they have another module which is for their purposes. So they've already built a lot of things, and it has content being imported from YAML. Yeah, so we just need to take a look at that and see what we can take from there, and then start building on top of that.
Yeah. Okay, so that's. I mean, I'm happy with whatever approach gets us content loaded into a sample profile. I would guess we need to kind of prototype the whole installation profile in that sense, right?
Yes.
Okay, Webchick says, suggest the target content out by hand, as in a sample website, a website that we have running somewhere to just see. Okay. Yeah. A reference implementation. That makes sense. I'm sorry, I'm reading the chat where Webchick says, let's build a reference implementation just on a point X somewhere without worrying about the programmatic creation of the content.
Yep, that makes sense.
Okay, so that in that way we can postpone on importing and etc. And if we create the content by hand, then that's that. Then we could just look at, okay, site building and theming.
Sorry, I'm trying to type at the same time. I'll give up on that. So this has already been, the conversation around this has already been started, which is Larry's been looking at Style Guide, and we brought that up in the in some of the meetings. And obviously, I think the blocker on that is purely just getting final agreement on the designs.
Yeah, we kind of have figured out approach how we want to build or I have figured out a way how we want to build the style guide. Yeah, and definitely what is blocking us is just kind of the agreement on the design.
Okay, and where does this style guide live compared to starting an actual theme?
It will live in a Drupal theme. So we can use it's kind of a living, it's going to be a living style guide. And we will use Drupal to generate that.
So far, I haven't been convinced of the need of a style guide. Because we have all the designs in Sketch, and we need to build that. I never saw just yet the reason why you need a separate style guide when the scope of what you need to theme is so specific and limited in that sense. So I was more like interested in, do you already know if you want to do a sub-theme of Classy, or are we making a new theme, or more like that approach?
I would prefer that we don't use Classy. But
I have no opinion at all on this, right? It's just something that
yeah.
I would expect we consensus on sooner rather than later.
I think there is more future with. I don't know. Maybe we should even choose that we don't implement it on stable. I don't know if it's even possible. But I think that would be the best option in long run. That would cause least problems when we branch Drupal 9. That's definitely something we have to discuss. And I think we have to discuss it with Kotzer.
Okay, so that's an action point, right?
Yeah. Like if we can make him agree that we don't have to implement it on Classy, which would be exception in compared to other teams. So
okay, and this. Sorry, go ahead.
Just about what is people discussing on the Slack about the issue. Who wants to reply, Bojan, for his comment.
I will. He's actually joining the call just now.
Yep, I literally just joined. But
yeah.
I can do it.
Oh, hi, Brian. Yeah, obviously that I'm happy to get around to replying. I've literally just got back from a break, so I've been a bit slow. But we can cover some of it now as well, if desired.
Yeah, is there any points that is actually like something that we should discuss, like something that is very boring?
No, so at least from my point of view, it's like most of the things that I identified are either kind of more detailed or just general questions about kind of what we put on each page. And that mostly relates to, I think, some of the repetition. But I don't think there's anything like big fundamental. I think that it's just mostly like detail work.
Okay. So then I assume that we don't have to discuss it now, since it's more about the details.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what the goal is, but yeah, I don't think so.
We're trying to pivot towards implementation discussion. So we got a plan in place for actually scoping the thing and knowing the actionable points for starting the implementation of this. So far, WebSafe suggested that we should set up a reference implementation, so without worrying about how to exactly import content, etc., just start building out a website with the content so that we also have a place to start theming that content. And in parallel, we can then research how to wrap that into an installer profile and import the content automatically.
Maybe I would suggest that maybe this weekend I would take a look at the Contenta, the recipes module that they've built. If that does what it promises, it would just do everything that we need out of the box. Basically, like we need zero configuration. It's built on the suggestions that I got from the migration maintainers and other people I talked with at Baltimore. So I think that would be a good starting point, as long as it just does what it says it does. So I suggest that we first try out if it at least does, because that could help us move fast.
But I'm just wondering, Laurie, like I think what Angie can jump in, but it's more about just making the initial team and with some content to just kind of get it in real HTML and CSS essentially. So
so like not even built on anything on Drupal, like just
we can do it with the Drupal theme system, but it's more about if we go down the path of like figuring out like how are we going to create the content, how are we going to create the individual pieces nicely within the realm of core. That's a separate track from just making the team and just putting the content in there and making sure that it doesn't break and it works.
Yeah, so
like those don't have to be done in the same kind of way.
Yeah, I understand, but the problem is that we need some kind of a way to collaborate anyway. So rather than trying to build another process for collaborating, we could try if this works out. And if it doesn't, then we can go with another approach. Like let's say if we start dealing with database dumps, it's kind of pain in the ass, as probably everyone can expect. So like if we actually have like a source code that works, it can make it faster for us to develop this.
Yeah, but then it doesn't have to be committed to core, but it could just be the approach that you use to prototype it further.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, that makes sense.
And then if it does what we need, then we can just use it for development, and then we can let other people figure out if it's something that we can actually put into core later on. But first step definitely is to figure out how can we even do development around this.
Yeah, well, I think the nice thing if we get to like figuring out the content piece, even if it's not the best approach yet, but that we just have it at least in there, then we can have a lot of other people contributing to the team.
Yeah,
exactly. That widens up our like pool of contributors.
Like I don't want to go on the path like let's say what Drupal.org does, that they built like contained, like they provide a container for developers and they can test their changes there. So something like that is a huge infrastructure investment, and we shouldn't go on that. So like having some kind of patch that we can provide for people that please use this patch to patch Drupal and install your site, and then you will be able to do patches for this team.
Yeah, sounds good.
Sounds great.
Yeah, so I will take a look at this module this weekend, and I will try to set up an initial patch for the sandbox module based on what has been worked on the Contenta. So then we could actually have some people start building the team. It already contains a lot of content, but we can just replace the content with whatever we want because it's all in CSV. So it should be a fairly simple task for us to change the content to whatever we want to use instead of what they've provided there.
Okay.
So that's another actionable next step, like setting up some kind of a development procedure for now.
So it would be great to have it before DrupalCon, right?
Yeah, exactly. Because then at DrupalCon, people could do some work around this.
Mm-hmm.
Right, and Simply Test only lasts for half an hour, so that's tricky. I was thinking a patch that I could add to Simply Test, and then I would see it.
Yeah, I think.
But that's not a development; that's a preview.
I think Simply Test now does 24-hour containers. So.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, you can get longer than that as well if you ask Patrick, he'll extend it for you.
Yeah.
But it's still we couldn't ask him to extend it for 3 or 4 months. I would guess Platform SH or Acquia or Pantheon or someone would give us a development environment.
Sure.
Yeah, that's a good point. And that's definitely something that we should look into if this doesn't work out.
Yeah.
Yeah. But then so the main problem with that is just that it's limited number of people who can give access to there. Yeah. So I will test the Contenta modules this weekend and see if I could easily create a baseline for us to get started.
Cool.
I think another point that Roy pointed out was the style guides. That someone wants to discuss that.
The first idea for working on a style guide was starting the development, or at least the theming, before all the actual theme was done. So I don't know, creating the styles for input. Well, not inputs in this case, but for, I don't know, for text, for teasers, for whatever. So it was the initial idea behind having a style guide.
Okay,
yeah.
so it would be reusable. It would be real reusable styles in that sense.
Yeah. Is there any other value for, like, let's say, any different kind of people we have on the call of having a style guide? Is that the only reason why we should have a style guide? Does anyone else get benefits out of that?
The only other thing I was thinking about is that it shows that we do design the right way, right?
Yeah, I'm testing.
Yeah, it's like a good look to do the style guide. In that sense, it's professional, right?
Yeah.
And it might give us a baseline for extending Umami or the next, work as a reference for the next demo.
Exactly.
Yeah, I think it's just common good practice. Also because, say we're going to look at accessibility, we can look at the core element that makes that up, rather than looking at the individual components and diving down from there. So I think it's good practice, and that makes it also easier to tackle some of the problems we're going to be facing.
I definitely I agree that building style guides is kind of an industry standard, but I think we've worked on side projects that are slightly have a broader scope than this, because this is more of a project that is it would be in a budget of, like, let's say 5,000 to 10,000 euros, and I don't know many side projects that does style guides in a budget like that. Like, this is a very simple site that we are building in the end.
But it doesn't have to be as expensive as the one that we did for 7. I think it can be relatively just the the core components and making sure that those are captured, so that's the thing that we review against, rather than doing the whole thing all the time.
I was hesitant about it because I wasn't too sure if it would give us something that could be used right in the actual implementation. But if it gives us a head start for people to just start, hacking out the CSS we need anyway, then by all means.
Yeah. So
if it's a fast track to implementation, I would say go for it. If it's a distraction, I would say
yeah. So
don't.
I think all of the styles that we built at that point, because it's a living style guide, so all of that is reusable for the actual product. But the only problem on that is that because we don't have infrastructure set on that, so we need someone to build the infrastructure for creating the style guide. And that is the big distraction on that, not the actual, when we built a style guide.
Sorry, but like, those are two different
Why
things,
does
right?
it need infra?
Yeah, like we did with 7, we just posted essentially the core elements into a Drupal.
So if we don't build a living style guide, we don't get those benefits. Then none of the
well, you get the design
benefits. Reusable. You get the design benefits. Yeah,
not the implement benefits. Yeah, yes. That's true.
But just for
I think the 7.
Go ahead, Roy.
The 7 style guide was basically annotated Photoshop pictures, right? And I think what the team is discussing here is a living style guide, meaning actual HTML, CSS.
Okay.
To start defining your H1 to H6 and lists and tables, etc.
Yeah, I don't know what's the idea for this in a technical way, but I was at the beginning thinking more in just an HTML page that placed on the correct path can take exactly the same styles than the rest of the theme. I mean, I don't know exactly what do you have in mind.
But it's again like, if we invest more on the infrastructure on this, then everything becomes more reusable. If we invest less on the infrastructure, then things are less reusable that we built. So it's like, if we go with the minimal investment,
we have to also
from Photoshop, nothing is reusable. And if we invest, like, let's say I work 1 week on this, then we can have style guide where the style sheets that we would actually use on the team are loaded on the style guide, and everything works automatically, like magically.
But if you work 1 week on this, Larry, the budget is gone.
Yeah, so that's
5K is gone. Right?
Yeah, that's why a project with 5K don't usually build style guides.
The question is, do we know enough to start ramping up all the things and get real and start ramping up the infrastructure, or is there still the prototyping phase where we want to do a more live prototype than the sketch that might still not give us all the reusable elements? Or are we confident enough that this is what we're going to make, and we're going to go for
I think the style guide will be that prototype.
I think so, yeah. I'm thinking now that the plain HTML, CSS, non-Drupal style guide, I think that's how I'm seeing it, could be that intermediate step.
Yeah, and that gives us, I mean, I think, and I've spoke about this in front end and Athens this year, and again, thanks, Christina. in Vienna in a few weeks, that there's 3 great things it gives us, which is 1, the front-end developers can get started at the same time as the site builders. 2, we can use it for regression testing. So if we do add new features for 8.6 or 8.7, we can test that what we have now doesn't break. And number 3, we're going one step further than showing our client silly sketch files.
Yeah, so there's many like pre-built libraries for doing these things, but none of them are something that we can really use in this use case. This is kind of a special use case.
Yeah.
And that's why this is like, if I would build something for clients, it would be, I could pull like 5 different libraries and everything would be magically done, but it's not something that we can probably do in this case. Or like if you just, so the main problem is that because we don't have Sass in Drupal core. So yeah, like basically everything, all the like pre-existing libraries somehow built on top of that.
Yeah, that's a point. But I don't know, I would go for the style guide anyway. I think it can be useful in several situations, and it can help start building something even before we actually have tweaks and things to build, to work on it.
Yeah, I would just not worry too much about redoing something. If we have to copy paste for a couple of hours, that might still be faster than getting the infra up and running. Eventually, you want to have a situation where people can join and collaborate on that thing.
I think it's that's more, the question is more about like, do we want this style guide be something that we will use later than once we've first implemented this or not? If not, then going with the HTML, CSS way is definitely the best way to go forward. But if you want something that is reusable later on, like after we've implemented this, then we should find another way to build the style guide.
Just to chime in there, I think we have tried to do that with 7 quite a lot and quite intensively, but it's really, really hard. So I'm actually not sure about the benefits of that, because once you put it in core, like you keep going through the core process for every single change, and like aligning that with whatever you're doing in another place is hard.
Yeah, but the extra problem with on 7 is that the tooling is not right. Like the tooling is like complicated there.
I think with all the things that we're doing here, our first version should be the one-off implementation. I would not worry about the reuse, repeatable parts of this. We need to do this one time as is, so that we may learn and see how we would do it next time when we do the farmers market or the car magazine or the next one. I would really focus on the thing itself and not tooling and processes and wins down the road.
Yeah. So
yeah,
shitty first drafts.
I'm trying to think about like,
from there.
So
yeah,
Angie pointed out some very good comments, but I'm trying to think about like, what is it that we actually need for Vienna, like for people to be able to implement something? Like we need some kind of infrastructure for people to be able to set up some content on their local environment that is shared between multiple people.
Yes.
So that we see the same thing, and when we write patches that we can test what they've done, that is accurate. I guess if we go with the one-off solution, then we should do the same as with 7, that we just build a style guide on Photoshop, or like plain HTML page with CSS files loaded on it.
If we're going to go,
Sorry, Conrad.
No, I was just thinking, should we just start a sandbox for the theme so that people can load up the theme?
Yeah.
And so start the theme as a concept project. I can add the theme to whatever simply test and test run it and add a article and just see the basics. I mean, would that get us up and running?
That's exactly what I was going to suggest. If we don't plan on reusing Style Guide, if we're only going to have scans of a Photoshop document, yeah, I'd say base it off Classy or Stark or not Classy or Stable or something and start working. My heart breaks.
Yeah, I hear all the front-end.
But if you think about this, this is the 5,000 euros project. Like, you have to consider it.
It's true. No, that's fine. It'll be interesting to tell people in DrupalCon that after my presentation, yeah, our new team in core, we went with Photoshop.
I think it.
I guess we've been through the budget a couple of times already. Right?
I think we definitely should try to avoid any third library or whatever, because we can end up in a endless discussion if we use Bootstrap or if we use any other thing. So I just try to go at the beginning with this HTML and just go ahead with that for now.
So the good thing, if we say that this is just a temporary thing that is not going to be included in Drupal, that we just use this for to ease our development, then I don't think people are as passionate about having fights about that. If we say that we are going to add something in the core, then yes, like pulling in any kind of libraries is always going to be controversial.
Yeah, that would only slow us down. But if it helps you build the theme, and I don't know if you can eventually compile it and into the core patch that you actually need. I don't know.
So, do we have a consensus that are we going to build HTML/CSS like a simple style guide without any tooling, or to be able to do theming, like start theming immediately after we got approval on the designs, or do we want to do something else?
So
Can we?
go ahead.
Yeah, can we do just both? Can we start building the style guide with, for example, newbies or people that doesn't know too much about core, just helping with the HTML and giving them some index and start theming different components that they can reuse. And on the other side, some more experienced people could start just creating content types, creating tweaks for these views or view modes or whatever. So we could do both things. And also we should know which things needs to be built, like content types and views. And
I don't know if we actually have to build anything, because that's all in the module. Like, we already have most of that.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Wow.
So if
That's
we
great.
get that module working, like, we don't have to do any site building, or like we just have to confirm that everything is like we want it to be. But like, it has pretty much everything based on the requirements that we've like agreed on at the issues that we've discussed.
So it not only has content, but it also has views and content types.
It has content types, but I don't think it has views. It doesn't have views, but it does have the content types. Because without the content types, you can't really import the content, obviously.
Yeah, it has sense. Yeah.
So there is some things that we need to site build, yes. We need to build views and things like that.
Okay.
How do you think this eventually looks? Is there an Umami module and an Umami theme inside a demo experimental install profile?
I think
What
it's.
do you?
I would see it that there's a theme and then there's an installation profile. We don't have necessarily a module.
Okay. And the installation profile does the module bits of importing and configuration. Yeah.
Yeah.
Good.
So I think one of the very important next steps is to figure out like how much does that module do what we need, and I guess we can make further decisions based on that information.
We should also try to create issues for people so they can pick something and start working after preparing all the development environment.
Yeah.
What's the okay? Are we waiting? We're waiting for visual design sign off. Okay, that's one thing. Do we for styling, for theming? Are we waiting for Laurie to come back with what he's found in his experiments, or is there a first step we can take regardless of the outcome there?
About the example content.
Yeah. So I'm. Can we start? Is it sensible to start with HTML, CSS style guide, or with a stupid version of the theme, or not?
And also, shall we do it inside Drupal.org?
I'm fine with using anything. I don't have any opinion about that. But creating, for the style guide at least, creating like a GitHub repository might be a good idea and give everyone commit access.
Yeah, it could make things faster.
Yeah.
Okay.
And we can do that regardless of
Yeah.
the module research. Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
And it's not it doesn't have anything to do with Drupal. It's just like a recipe site.
Yeah.
Okay. Can everyone send your GitHub accounts? I will create a GitHub repository for this. Or we can use Drupal.org. It doesn't, I don't know. Doesn't really matter we use.
So what are the benefits of using GitHub?
Well, we can have some kind of like, let's say if we want to have CSS linting or something, any kind of tooling.
I think it's at large, at least from my experience, doing anything on Drupal.org, which is not a theme or a module, is actually just annoying. That's mostly it.
But so like from technical point of view, like if we need any kind of tooling around this, getting it on Drupal.org is going to be like 2-3 months.
Yeah.
If someone even considers that as important. On GitHub, we can just do it because everything supports GitHub.
Perfect.
Okay, let's start on GitHub at least.
Yeah, I buy it. Okay.
Umami.
So.
Okay, I created a repository. So can you send your GitHub accounts to me so I can give access for you?
Yeah.
Okay.
Then there's the discussion with Kotzer about, do we need that now? Is that a blocker?
For the technical implementation, yes. Like for the actual like technical implementation of the theme, it's a blocker.
Of course.
But for
is that something we can? Right. So this discussion, this point, Like the discussion with Kotzer. I don't know if he's in Vienna. Do you know, Lauri?
I don't know. I haven't heard that he would be coming.
Okay. Okay, but it's not an immediate blocker just yet. But it's something we need to work on.
Yeah.
Because just thinking that not all next steps should be with Lauri, right? If you GitHub repo is probably not that much work. The discussion is something.
Yeah, the GitHub repo I'm trying to set up now. I've already invited Christian and Mark.
Okay.
And so you have commit access there, and you can do anything that.
Okay. And what about the installation profile?
So about the installation profile, the first step is to figure out like what is how valuable is the, like I assume that it's very valuable for us, but the content that people has done, it looks really good. So the first step is to take a look at that and try to get it into in our installation profile.
Are we clear yet on what? There were some requirements, right, about what does it mean for an install profile to be experimental, as in make it uninstallable?
That's not agreed on yet, I think.
Okay, so. Okay.
So that's something we need,
so we need to figure out the parameters there. Yeah.
So we need feedback from the. What's the name of the project? We need feedback from the release managers and product managers on that. Basically, the problem is that the release managers and product managers their opinions are not, they don't align. Like basically, release managers want too much, and product managers cannot agree with that.
On what specifically?
Basically, they are like, what kind of warnings are we giving for users, and like what kind of minimum requirements we have about like are there some blocker currently open issues in Drupal.org that are blocking us? Like let's say you are not. It is not possible to change installation profile. So if you accidentally build your site based on an experimental installation profile, there is no way of making your site support it anymore.
So and you're saying public release is not in agreement about the impact of that in terms of blocking this going in?
I guess we have to revisit that discussion because it's been a while since the specifics of that were discussed. Looking back at what we just said, right, we need to do the one-off now and figure out how to make this a repeatable process later. I think that would also go for this install profile. And we're changing the experimental process anyway, right? On the one hand, I feel that with the new changes, we'll be able to be more liberal in what we commit to core. It's just a question of do we actually expose it once we release.
Yeah, I'm generally not that concerned about disagreements between release managers and product managers, etc. I mean, that's just a discussion to have. Like normally that would have always happened in the queue, and now it's like more structured. But other than that, it's just discussions to have.
Yeah, so we've had one conversation all together at some point, but
let's prepare this for Vienna at the very least, right? Because in Vienna we will have committed access in that sense. So okay.
Okay.
Anything else for now?
I'm checking the list now. One of the issues is the profile selection screen that we didn't discuss at all yet. I think that's the only thing.
The more
that
I think about it, the more it's super not connected to out of the box, right? It's the result of out of the box initiative. We can have an out of the box installation with or without that screen being redesigned. I think it's something people could just start working on if they want to see it happen.
I think it's so.
But
there is some minimum.
It's not a blocker and it's not a requirement.
I think there is some minimum requirements because of the. We need some kind of warning that it's experimental.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
So we don't have to go with the ambitious redesign if we don't want. But some kind of something we have to do about that.
That's true.
Yeah.
All right, I have to drop off. Dinner's ready. So let's see you later.
Yeah, mine's ready.
Okay, so I think what we should next discuss is when are we meeting next time, / what is the, how do people want to communicate?
In a Slack, you mean?
Do we
or
need meetings? Do we need? Do we need meetings, or do we just get active, get busy in Slack and the GitHub repo?
Yeah.
And,
so
basically, update each other and figure out an agenda for when we are in Vienna, so that we have the right questions and the right framing of the questions when we talk with other.
I think the big problem is just the time zones. Like if you don't have any setup time, I'm worried that because people are at different time zones that it's difficult to have some conversations.
Okay, so let's say that we meet again in 2 weeks. So that's halfway Vienna.
Yeah.
Between now and Vienna.
Yeah.
But just the same time.
Let's find that. Yeah, for example, let's find that. That one in the calendars.
which day? The 11?
Same.
So that's 12th.
12, okay. Same time?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Good.
So I will post something on the Slack once I've taken some time to figure out what is going on there. Did someone take notes?
No, not me.
Very, very, very sparse notes, but I.
Do you have the next
I'll
steps
do a little,
at least as notes?
Yes, I do.
Okay,
I'll post them in Slack.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was hoping. So I remember what are my own commitments.
Yeah. I'll get those in Slack for you.
Okay, thank you. So see you in 2 weeks and see you on
Okay,
Slack.
team.
Okay.
Yes. Thanks all for your time.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye.
you. Bye.
All right. Bye. All
Right,
right.
thank you. Bye.